What is going on, everybody? Paul here, coming at you with your Crypto Coffee update. I got your news, conferences, events, and today a fantastic explanation of what's going down in the crypto world. But first, of course, got a simultaneous sip. French press, best press. All right, so today I want to give a brief explanation of what's going down with the Bitcoin Cash fork. Yes, I know I'm a bit late on that, but I wanted to wait for the dust to settle and give a very brief synopsis in the most succinct way I possibly can. This has led to a lot of fanfare in the crypto community and beyond, and I want to give the best explanation possible to just kind of clarify any misconceptions and really calm some folks down, because frankly we are watching distributed architecture and decentralized systems do what they were intended to do from the outset, and I'll explain why. Here I am at Cashcoin Dance. This allows you to track basically all of the information associated with the Bitcoin Cash fork. You can see here the yellow line indicates Bitcoin Cash ABC and the red line indicates Bitcoin Cash SV. Now, don't worry if that's a bit confusing. I'm going to go ahead and give a bit of historical context to explain who these groups are and what this all means. Bitcoin, for all intents and purposes, was just one single architecture or protocol up until 2017, at which point in time there was a split in the community between Bitcoin Core, BTC, which is the #1 cryptocurrency in the world, Bitcoin, and BCH, Bitcoin Cash, which is a kind of derivative of the Bitcoin protocol known as Bitcoin Cash. So this was the first major event in which you had a fork of Bitcoin that was seen as legitimate by a large portion of the community, the first contentious fork. Many individuals are maybe unaware that Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin, has the same architecture, however the hashing algorithm was changed, as was the block time. This was back in 2011. If Charlie Lee, when he did this, were to say, well, this is Bitcoin Lite, perhaps a similar level of contention could have occurred within the community. However, the naming convention being shifted largely placated this potential chaos, and it seems as though this chaotic nature is really natural in markets and competition. We see it cropping up whenever you have a sizable community with vested interest, and that makes sense. One size does not fit all, and we're seeing that played out here. Fast forward to today, after August 2017, Bitcoin Cash is its own ecosystem. It's had much development and much fanfare, and for some individuals, much chagrin. Now, we have two camps within the Bitcoin Cash community with different ideologies and different ideas as to how Bitcoin Cash should move forward now that it's had some tepid success. Suffice to say that these two groups are not equal, and they're ran by very different individuals, not holistically liked by many members of the community. As said, Bitcoin Cash ABC, which is the yellow line here, they retain many, the vast majority actually, of the developers from the Bitcoin Cash community, as well as most of the community support. However, in cryptocurrency, it's all about hash power, and that's what Bitcoin SV, indicated by the red line, vehemently believes. They believe that, realistically, it doesn't matter what the community says, it matters about the miners. They're the end-all be-all of the system. From a technical perspective, they're right. However, they are primarily backed by Craig Wright, an individual who claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto and has a checkered past, and Calvin Ayre, an eccentric Bitcoin billionaire who is assumingly largely funding the Bitcoin Cash SV implementation, at least for the time being. So, with that said, it seems as though with the dust settled, Bitcoin ABC, with its superior technical development, block explorers, and tools, along with associated name recognition, has won the day, and Craig Wright's implementation, Bitcoin SV, that is going to be labeled as its own implementation of the Bitcoin protocol, and Bitcoin ABC retains the Bitcoin Cash ticker. So, all is well for the time being, but this has led to a lot of confusion within the community, and a lot of just questions about what is a fork, why is this happening, and where are my coins? And I hope to get those questions answered and alleviated to the best of my ability today. So first off, just to clarify, if you have, let's say, Bitcoin Cash on a ledger, everything is fine. Just simply because ABC, SV, both want to retain that name recognition. They want to retain that value of the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem, so any coins in existence, they're going to allow you to keep those and do your thing. So really this is an added value event. You have both now Bitcoin Cash ABC or Bitcoin Cash tokens and Bitcoin SV tokens, which can be claimed. Now, this enters into a realm of speculation. Is Bitcoin Cash SV worth anything? Why would I want that? How did this happen? I now have two different versions of Bitcoin? Yes. Absolutely. And this is decentralized infrastructure playing out to its finest. This is the epitome of what the ecosystem was supposed to do. If an individual or group of individuals finds the ecosystem which they're in unpreferable, they're able to take the hard work that has already been done and innovate atop of it, proposing it to a voluntary market and seeing whether or not they can offer a more valuable proposition to the larger community and world, to be frank, than what previously exists. And it seems as though the market has spoken. Just like in the Bitcoin Cash fork, when they forked away from Bitcoin Core, the market spoke and said, BTC is going to remain Bitcoin. It's just how it is. That's neither good nor bad. It's just how the technical nature of the system was designed, and it's playing out as intended. And interestingly enough, none of the implementations actually of Bitcoin that are popular today are the true Bitcoin. It largely boils down to semantics. In 2008, when Satoshi Nakamoto kicked off this big thing known as a cryptocurrency, not blockchain, that dates back to 1991, believe it or not. We'll pack that away for another time. Bit of a non sequitur. 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto kicks off Bitcoin, and since then, every popular implementation has had some kind of technical innovation built atop of it. Bitcoin Cash kicked up the block size, added in some new opcodes. Bitcoin Cash SV wants to lock down the whole protocol, and BTC, the big daddy, the true Bitcoin, well, they've added SegWit. So realistically, it all depends on how you semantically define true Bitcoin. I've heard some arguments stating that this induces confusion into the ecosystem, and that's not a good thing. However, I argue the opposite. I argue that being the fact that we're dealing with a technology that embodies financial sovereignty for individuals all around the world, and it's in its infancy, it makes sense that some degree of confusion and technical complication would go along with that. So my 2 cents, Paul's hot take, is realistically, if you don't know what's going on, reach out. Ask individuals, whether it be me or an expert you trust or an individual who's more technically minded, or just wait. Jumping the gun and trying to get ahead to make a quick buck and make some profit can realistically burn you at times. And one thing stands true, doing your own research and knowing what you know is the biggest tool. Marcus Aurelius, don't always say what you know, but always know what you say. And that applies to action as well. After all, speech is a form of action. Kraken, they have Bitcoin SV on there. They had the futures thing going on. They say it's high risk and it doesn't meet listing requirements. This is the market speaking. This is the market showing what happens when the dust settles. First, I believe it was, who was it? I forget which exchange listed it first, but after the first exchange decided Bitcoin Cash, ABC, would be the implementation of Bitcoin Cash that would retain the BCH ticker, many exchanges followed suit. This makes sense. Precedent is very strong. It's been a bit of a losing battle, you could say, for Bitcoin Cash to try to fight the war to say, oh, we're the true Bitcoin. Again, not only is it all about semantics when you're defining terms like that, but it's very difficult to wrest control when the market has spoken, and oftentimes it's just kind of a quagmire of energies that otherwise could be redirected towards building innovative tools for this exciting financial sovereign ecosystem, if I could phrase that semantically like that. Not only that, this is something that's going to continue to happen just indefinitely into the future, just because of the characteristics innate in the decentralized architecture. There's a mining pool now called Shark Pool, pulled up the article here, and they're talking about annihilating these Bitcoin forks just simply because they dislike the fact that these coins are bearing the Bitcoin name, and that's totally legitimate. They can do that if they really want to. It's just how it is. After all, there's a kernel of truth to almost every implementation, but it gets back to the ideologue argument in a way. Craig Wright, in my opinion, is completely right in that hash means everything. After all, if I go and protest and hold up my sign that says Jihan Wu's no good outside of Bitmain, it's not going to change the impact that their hash rate has on any implementation of Bitcoin that they decide to point those machines at. So this is within their rights. So in a way, Craig Wright has a kernel of truth. In the same way, Bitcoin ABC, they have a kernel of truth as well. They want to innovate on top in a slower way to ensure that maximum individuals can understand and adopt the Bitcoin ecosystem. Great. Bitcoin, BTC, they have a kernel of truth. You need to have accessibility and operability to even be considered as a viable option, and name recognition is imperative. So Blockstream and that group, they have a kernel of truth. Realistically, this is just technological implementations, and frankly, it makes sense that there's a lot of confusion surrounding it. I hope I could explain this in a way that's succinct enough to drive home the points without going too deep into the history of everything going on. But really, I just wanted to round this out and say that this is how the technology is supposed to function. The information is really readily available, and there are plenty of individuals in the field that are willing to give not only their hot take, but sit down and talk about what this means for the ecosystem, how this is going to play out in the future, and how this technology will continue to mushroom out with these same characteristics indefinitely, because that's just what decentralized systems do. Traders claimed losses on OKX after the Bitcoin Cash contracts have settled. They lost about $700,000 as a Chinese individual, and they're going to reduce the $5 million funds utilization of the exchange. This is something that I'm kind of having a hard time with. Realistically, of course, OKX should be more straightforward about that sort of thing, but this goes back to doing your own research. This is a lot of money in a very, very volatile currency in a very volatile time on a very centralized volatile exchange. Realistically, the point I want to make is, at what point does personal responsibility usurp an individual's losses? Because isn't that what this movement is all about? The notion that individual responsibility is paramount, and that anybody controlling their own finances in a sovereign way needs to take that responsibility into their own hands. It's like what Ben Frank said, right? Benjamin Franklin, he who would give up a little bit of freedom for a little bit of security will lose both and deserves neither. So really, I feel for this guy. Sorry, Chow, I think that's how you pronounce that. It's perhaps the fault of the exchange, but again, perhaps there's a kernel of individual responsibility that could be reflected on before actions like this are undertaken. It's a new frontier, and there is a lot of volatility out there. And I do want to express as well, I feel for, I empathize a lot with people like the Delawite blockchain chief. Bad crypto headlines make clients nervous. This is a huge amount of technical information about a very technical system, and many people just don't care, as they shouldn't. Systems should be relatively easy to use, straightforward, and understandable for many individuals. And the fact that the technical aspects in these hash wars, as they're being termed, has bubbled up to the surface with tons of misinformation and worry and financial speculation associated with it, really makes the space look largely amateur. Frankly, the distributed ledger technology, blockchain consensus, Nakamoto consensus protocol, is one of the largest technical developments in financial technology of all time. Immutable ledgers are, well, near immutable ledgers are, they have so much value for humanity as a whole, and having that intrinsic association with a highly volatile financial speculation asset, which many cryptos largely are, it leads to some issues in the minds of people who aren't so well versed and steeped in the blockchain space. So that's why we here at Cryptide, at least me as an individual, Paul, I'm vying for a back to basics movement. I really think we individuals here in the crypto space, we have a responsibility to bring ourselves back to basics, to convey these basics in such a way as to where it's digestible for business professionals and the layman alike, to where they can begin to understand what this technology is and reasonably understand that this whole Bitcoin Cash fork thing is completely separate and divorced from distributed ledger technology or a independent blockchain implementation. So just wanted to drive that home, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and transition into what's happening for November 19th, Monday, just simply because, for the sake of brevity, we've got a lot of information here today. Of course, links below in the description, guys. Got to cite your sources, and let me know what you think of this kind of material. Drop me a comment. Am I off base? Do you have alternative opinions? Do you have information you just want to share? Because that's what this is all about. We're building the space to be the best it could be. Let me know what you think of that back to basics movement, too, as we get into Monday, November 19th. We have the LendIt Fintech conference happening in London, and the Node Tokyo 2018 conference kicking off, where else? Of course, in Tokyo. And we have the workshop on elliptic curve cryptography, one of those highbrow conferences happening in Japan. Next up, for November 20th, Tuesday, we have Provenance, which is a really cool sounding conference happening in Seoul, South Korea. Data Protection World Forum kicking off in London, as is the Internet of Banking and Payments, which is happening in London. And we have Viva la Crypto happening in Mexico. That's all for Tuesday, November 20th. As usual, of course, links in the description. Like I said, gotta cite the sources, as well as a list of B-list tokens. Some are great, some not so much, but I try to give you guys all the information I come across so you can make your own informed decisions. That's what doing your own research is all about. But for now, we are Cryptide. This is Paul signing off. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Seriously, the channel wouldn't be anything without you guys. Much love, and remember, the tide is rising, as is hopefully the caliber of explanation.